All right, I think we're going. Welcome back to another one of these things. We're just kind of talking about whatever comes to mind. Welcome back to another Friday. I just said welcome back like 2 times, and that was kind of weird. Sorry if that was jarring. It was a little jarring for me, thus the pause. It wasn't for dramatic effect. It was for confusion. But yeah, hope your Friday is going fantastic and that your weekend is starting off right. That you're looking to do some, I guess, interesting or fulfilling things within the next couple days. You deserve it. I know I'm looking forward to a little bit of relaxation. Though I'll probably be working on some things too. I have a bit of writing I need to do. But I did do a bit of research today, thanks to kind of being able to manage my own time during my work hours now. So I'm just like, well, me building a technology thing is a part of what I want to do as a business. The other thing is still science communication. So I can treat that research as work that I'm doing. I still don't want to necessarily spend half a day doing that during the week. I'd rather be doing the tech stuff during the week. So I'll probably still be doing a bit of time on the weekend for that. But that's just my my own desire to use my weekend time to write, I guess. I don't know. I'm used to it at this point. We'll see if I end up getting out of that habit. But, and today I did get to learn a bit about Android development. One of the things that I'm looking to do is write an app. And I was initially thinking about maybe doing a cross-platform language for those not super familiar with that development space. There are languages that you can write in that will compile down to versions that can run on either Android or iOS. There's usually a few caveats with that, though, from either a performance or just a largeness of a package or just how the program will work on either platform. So I did opt to just go with closer to native languages on both of those platforms. So writing the Android side of the equation in Java, and if I do end up writing the iOS side myself, then in Swift. So we'll see how that goes. The Android platform is the one that I'll be working with and testing things out and making sure things work, and then either writing the iOS port myself or potentially hiring somebody if I can get some finances for doing that. We'll see how that goes. But did learn a bit of Android development fundamentals, and it was honestly not as bad as I was anticipating. I remember trying to do that a little bit in the past and felt a bit overwhelmed. Came back at it today after a few failed attempts at getting my computer to recognize, or Android Studio to recognize my phone. That wasn't working for about 2 days, and it turns out all I needed to do was change from file transfer mode to photo transfer mode. And then it was just like, hey, you're trying to debug on a computer. I'm like, this has nothing to do with connecting and doing USB debugging. Why was this the thing that fixed it? But that's welcome to programming. Welcome me to programming. Welcome again to programming 8 years after starting programming. Cool. I shouldn't be surprised at this point when things like that happen. It just comes with the trade. Anyway, that was my day. Actually getting around to doing some app development. Not the actual thing, just trying things out, creating activities, intents, and moving between those activities, and making sure that I can get everything constrained right and my UIs look all right and it looks like a functioning app. I could do that now. Cool. Onward and upward from here. Anyway, things to talk about today. So, since I like talking about game stuff on Fridays, I was debating talking a little bit about Super Metroid since I'm playing that right now. I don't know why. Well, I do kind of know why. I've been watching Dan Floyd and Dan Jones playing it on PlayFrame, the Link to the Past and Super Metroid randomizer, and I'm like, I played a lot of Link to the Past, I haven't really played Super Metroid before, so I wanted to give that a shot. But I don't really have anything to say about that yet. I'm about halfway through it. But with regards to making things in general, there is something that I really like to think about, and that's incorporating game elements into other things that you're building. So when I was learning game design, and maybe it's still like a thing that people like talking about, I don't hear about it too much, but it might just be because I've worked in an industry for 8 years that is very stagnant and doesn't think about doing a lot of things in new ways. But a concept that I don't really like the name of, gamification. Taking something that isn't a game and then incorporating game-like elements into that thing is what that had historically meant. I don't really like calling it that because you're not turning something into a game. You're just trying to make something feel more engaging, for lack of a better way of describing it. Like, you're never, anybody who's making a program or making an app that isn't a game and they want to encourage people to stick around and just use the app more, drive more traffic, they'll use that gamification term to basically just say, I want to get more people like using this more often. Usually that comes with a one of a couple things. It's usually mechanics where you're leveling up or you're filling up a meter of some kind. It's do this activity over and over again so that you get a bigger number at the end of doing this thing X number of times. So if you have to do this activity 20 times, you can see this number going up and you see this progress being made. 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20, 3 out of 20. And until you hit that 20 and then it's done and you got something, either a level or some achievement or something. You've earned something. And to be fair, this isn't a terrible thing when used appropriately. It can be a mechanic used to guide people onto a path of intended behavior. Used improperly, it can be a tactic to keep people coming back even when they shouldn't be coming back. You're just having them repeat something over and over again because it's useful to you. It's not useful to them, if that makes sense. So those are usually the kinds of mechanics that you see. Skinner's box type conditioned responses. I do a thing, I get some menial reward that makes me feel good about doing this thing, and then you give me another thing to work on, so I keep doing that menial thing to get another dopamine rush. Basically, I want to feel good about doing this thing. And for things like, I don't really want to say like Overwatch is a great example of this, it's because it is a game, but like they're convincing you to come back for that level, for the leveling system, by saying it's like you're this much closer to getting a level and thus getting a loot box or a set of loot boxes, or a loot box that you can open. And incorporating those kinds of mechanics, it's like it's just a reason to keep you playing, because the way that the game is balanced, you're not going to win all the time. You're not going to get your dopamine rush by playing the game. You're going to get your dopamine rush about 50% of the time when you're playing the game, by design. And they want to give you some reason to keep playing beyond that 50% of the time when you're not having a good time, which is really interesting when you think about it. And that can be a whole topic on its own, is why people, like, how you encourage people to play games that are only interesting to them about half the time, at least if like winning is the core part of feeling good. And there are other mechanics in Overwatch that make you feel good. Play of the game, you don't have to win to get play of the game. You also get your highlights, so your own character has like parts where they performed well. It wasn't the play of the game, but it was pretty good, and the game lets you keep those for later, and you can watch them after your play session. But usually, at least for me, that was playing it or watching those after I was done with a play session, so it really wasn't encouraging me to keep playing. It was something that was a nice way to wrap up the session. But play of the game is just one of those things. It's like I didn't have to win. I was just super badass, and look how cool I was. And then you have like your, I forget if they were badges. I can't remember what they were called, but they're basically little achievements for if you did particularly well or were a good team player in the game. And then people can vote on that. So there's a lot of these mechanics that make people feel good even if they weren't on the winning team. Or at least they try to make people feel good even if they weren't on the winning team. So that's why I didn't really like using that as an example. Since it is a game, there are other mechanics at play to try and balance out that you're going to lose 50% of the time by design mechanic. With products, with applications and things that aren't really a game, they're trying to get you to do a task because that task makes them money. And they want you to do that task over and over again, whether or not it's just come into the app and see an ad. As long as they're getting you into the app, then ads are rolling and they get some kickback for that. If getting you to click through to some other location gets the money, they want you to do that as much as possible. And if they can tie these numbers associated to the actions that result in you doing that most often, then they're making the most money they can while encouraging you to do these menial tasks over and over again. That's usually what people are talking about when they're talking about gamification, which is unfortunate because saying I want to incorporate game-like elements into something that I'm working on, using leveling systems and meters that go up and up and going from small numbers to high numbers, like those are things that they're core to, I shouldn't say core, they're very familiar things in games that I have liked over the years, particularly role-playing games. I really like those. I really like those kinds of games. So it kind of stinks that I'm seeing some of the mechanics that I'm used to seeing there used in these weird ways, potentially nefarious ways. I shouldn't say weird. They're being used appropriately, just in scenarios that don't quite make sense. Or at least don't make like benevolent sense, if that makes sense. Sense. Saying sense too much. Back it up. So, but limiting yourself to thinking about game elements as in incorporating numbers to encourage people to stick around more or do actions more often is pretty short-sighted. One of the things that I've really enjoyed, sort of learning to enjoy rather, is shorter games, narrative-based games, games that are offering experiences rather than just raw gameplay. Like you're doing platforming really well, or you're playing a first-person shooter, or you're role-playing as a character, or it's like a shoot 'em up or something, or a fighting game. Like having a narrative hook as being the thing that brings you into that game world, that's an interesting perspective. I think that when talking about bringing game elements into something, what you're really looking to do is saying my game or my app or my program isn't particularly engaging, and I don't want my users to go away. I want people to spend time in here and feel like this thing has value. And in lieu of being able to make this thing actually seem engaging or valuable, you use tactics that make them want to stay there for all the wrong reasons. But when we think about what games are actually doing, what makes games particularly interesting, it's that engagement factor. It's being able to feel like you're a part of a world that means something to you, which is pretty hard to do in like an application that's intended to do a task. So I can see why people would go toward those kinds of achievement type systems where you're rewarded for doing tasks over and over again. It lines up fairly well. But if you can find other ways to make something engaging, not because it's particularly repetitive or rewarding for doing tasks, that's wonderful for getting people up to speed on how to use your product. I saw that with Wondershare Filmora over the past week when I went back into that app, which is a video editing tool, they basically have these little achievements that were showing up being like, hey, you did a good job and you did this. Congratulations. Here's a badge or an achievement. Same with like the Google Android developer tutorials. It's like, hey, you downloaded Android Studio. Here's an achievement. It's okay when getting people like ramped up and learning about something. I think that's not a bad thing. But what you can do is create applications that tell a bit of a story. They're not just there for you to do a task. They're there to amplify an experience. And I think we don't really see too many of these kinds of applications out there because we kind of live in a very task-driven world. Like, there are things that we need to do that would be great if they were automated. And a lot of people get behind that. They see a task that's like, I can write code that does that instead, so you go write code that does that instead. And there's really no way to make that task super engaging. If there were, you'd be doing the task longer. It wouldn't be automated. But if we start seeing problems in the real world that are more engagement issues or community problems, like how do I get people to rally behind a certain cause, or how do I get people to learn about the world in a new way? How do I present information to more people where information is known but hard to get to? How can we build applications that make people feel like they're a part of the world? Not just a game world, not just that program world, but just the world in general. Like, how I'm thinking of applying this line of logic is by taking the world around us, a world of plants, things that humans don't see that well. We see them, but we don't know them. And there are places in the world where we know what the plants are in certain locations. So why not make that data available? And make it so that using this app is engaging, or have an app that makes engaging with that place more fun. Engaging with that place more engaging was the first sentence I was thinking of, and that's what I wanted to say, but I was saying engaging too many times. But now I had to retrofit that in there, so you know why I said fun instead of engaging, and I don't really like using the term fun because that's very subjective. But engaging is a rather objective thing. There's ways you can measure that. So sorry about that. But it'd be great if, and I can't be the only person who's thinking about stuff like this. A lot of problems that we have these days, in my opinion, like we're very good right now at making tools that make tasks easier. And we have tools that make running the things that make those tasks easier. They're very all over the place. I can't say that they're everywhere yet. That's me living in the United States and thinking that the United States is the world. And it's not. There's a lot of people who don't have mobile devices throughout the world. But where we're at, the people who are looking to streamline their tasks, devices like phones and tablets, watches, and devices that are connected to the Internet of Things, they're already good at solving tasks that need doing over and over again. I feel like where we are and where we're continuing to head is that we have a hole where a physical community used to be what drove us to do certain things, or to gather together and band together and do things that had meaning. And as we have less meaning to gather, and well, we have an actual physical thing that's going on right now that's preventing people from being together in physical spaces. But the more we can do on our own in isolation, the more people are alone and in isolation. If we can build tools that encourage people to get back together in spaces that have a lot of knowledge to share, and have a community that builds out of that, making that space, or just the world in general, a more engaging, community-driven place, that has value. And what you do when you build applications that work toward that goal, is just a more engaging reality. You're baking the engagement that I have a person experiencing something and has a story to tell other people that you would experience in games within an application that people can use to enhance their experience in reality. Having more things like that could be pretty beneficial. And it's using aspects of game making and storytelling, game design and storytelling, that aren't as inherent. There are likely ways that you can use those mechanics for bad reasons or to encourage monotonous, bad, repetitious behavior. But at least we're trying something different. Something from games that can be used in a storytelling way, rather than a do this task over and over again way, so that your numbers go up and you feel better because your number got a little higher. Being able to take a story away or share information with people and build mechanics into your programs that are still very much based in that game design world, that game design space, but the game you're designing for is reality. We kind of need to see more stuff like that. I'm excited to share more with what I'm building too. Just because I think it's a decent way to see if something like that even works or has value. I think it does. I really think it does. And we'll just see how this all goes, I guess. Yeah, that's thoughts for today. We'll call it at that. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.